Welcome to Quick Take. I'm your host, Susie Tomanchuk, along with James Gabbs. How are you, James?
I'm doing great. Big shout out to all those Quickers out there watching today. Thanks for joining us.
We appreciate you. So excited to be here. I think this is a great topic, vulnerability. And the reason it's such a great topic is we think we know it, we talk about it a lot, but it's a lot deeper than we give ourselves credit for. Will you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty generic term that I think is overused, and
Yeah.
perhaps I think the uh, the challenge is really getting to the root of what it is and making sure as a leader that we embrace it where we can.
Yeah, and it's another one of those things that we have to kind of re-look at
Hmm.
ongoing because you
Oh,
don't just
absolutely.
set and go.
Yep. Again, yeah. Let's not do vulnerability on Wednesday.
No.
That's not how it works. Right.
And so my story today is comes to you from a friend of mine who lives back east, who kind of gave me an urgent call, like, I
Mm,
need to talk to you today. Can you drop everything for me? Because I'm having a career catastrophe.
mm,
And so I talked to him, and and I will say he's not like a very emotional person just in general. And so when he got on the phone, I was really struck by how kind of tied up he was in what
mm,
was going on. And so basically he had been a senior leader in a quite a large organization, well respected, delivered on a very high level. Teams loved him, very networked within the company, and he was being demoted
mm.
and going to report into somebody else, and
Right.
not necessarily because of him, but just because of the structure and how that was all going to be play out politically.
Right.
And so it took him like a day, but he was able to kind of hone what was going on and separate that from himself so
Right.
that he could look at it objectively. And
Hmm.
he was just really open about, so this is how I'm going to recast this for
Right.
myself.
Right.
And I think having somebody to as a sounding board
Hmm.
helped him get to a point where he could be open and vulnerable
Yeah.
so that he could see it and shift it. So that's how I
Right.
kind of look at vulnerability in that example.
Well, I think that's a great example of the value of having the ability or the value of being vulnerable in certain circumstances. And in fact, if I was coaching that individual, I would talk to him about how he should use this situation and express those emotions to his peers
Oh,
and at
yeah.
work to show, hey, folks, I was demoted and this has been challenging for me.
Yes.
And so that kind of that is an opportunity for him to really create an environment where, boy, he's going to get. In fact, this demotion could be perhaps one of the best things that could happen to his career because it allows him to pivot his brand, if you will, and really create relationships much stronger because of it.
Oh, I got
It's
to
a
call
really
him
good
back.
opportunity. You should call him back.
I am going to. It's probably about the right time to call him back and say, here's some added on. And I see a new career for you.
Well, there we go. But I think that's
Oh,
that's really my first recommendation on and creating leveraging vulnerability in the workplace is really having that open and honest dialogue, creating those situations where you can be clear with your emotions and share that type of challenge. This is a super great opportunity for this individual to express the frustrations, address them openly and honestly. And it's hard to hide at work when you've been demoted. That's not like you can brush that off, or everybody knows it's clear and it's probably been communicated. But what an opportunity for you to really do take that step and create a world or an environment where people appreciate and know that they can be vulnerable too.
okay, so I'm going to ask you to be vulnerable right now. So
Hmm.
when you think back on when we worked together, so maybe 10 years ago,
Yep.
I'm trying to think of you in that context. I feel like you were vulnerable, but I feel like you have evolved.
Oh gosh, yeah.
No, so like, how did that happen for you? Do you think it was where you were in your career? Or do you think it was that time of
I think it's a lot of
era of
things.
vulnerability?
I think certainly I don't know that we had an environment where that was necessarily
Mm.
appreciated. I don't know that I was seasoned enough to know when to do that. But I would also argue that personally I've been somebody who tends to be a little more transparent in the way that I share things, and I think that my staff probably from back then would probably say, that I was maybe I did share my emotions and frustrations like that, and hope to create an environment like that. I'm certainly better now than I was then, but I do think it depends. In that case, it was certainly a different type of environment.
Thank you for being vulnerable, James. Appreciate that.
Happy to.
All
So the
right.
second way that you can do that, another really great tip that I like to give people when we talk about is um, admit mistakes, right? So this is
Yeah.
you and acknowledge the fact that maybe that your behavior or performance wasn't the best, or things could have been better. And creating that dialogue where you can seek feedback is
Yeah.
always fantastic. That is I think the hallmark of vulnerability of just raising your hand and saying, yes, this wasn't the ideal
Mhm.
situation. And that creates back to a couple of our other episodes, where it creates an environment of dialogue, creates an environment where people are going to trust to share with you certain things. And so you as a leader being vulnerable in that moment, saying, boy, we could have done better, and help me grow from this, I think is a really good way of creating that a strong team.
Great suggestion. I also would say it's not always black and white. It's
Oh,
not always
absolutely.
like I said we should go with this software and the
Hmm.
software was wrong.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Mistakes can be a lot more nuanced. And so
sure.
even taking the time to tease out some of the things that you could have done differently, or an approach, or the way you said it, or like there's a lot of different ways you can articulate that if you're conscious or conscientious of
Hmm.
being intentional about that.
What I like to say in meetings is like, I wonder if we could have done a better job on that, or I wonder if I
Yeah.
could have been better. And it's really not saying I was wrong, because I'm not, to your point, I'm not afraid of saying I'm wrong when it's binary, but it's not, it's rarely binary,
Mhm.
right?
Exactly.
It's rarely cut and dry that, oh, shoot, we should have gone left and we went right. It's like, hey, maybe we could have learned from this. I love the retrospective concept. We do some episodes with some leaders,
Mhm.
our live events, where we do a retrospective on some of their decisions, and I just think that honest moment and that kind of vulnerable conversation goes a long way to really ensuring that the teams
Mhm.
improve and appreciate you.
Yeah, and it could be very small, like just saying that,
Absolutely.
that shows that vulnerability. All right, what's
Hmm.
your third one?
Well, I think the third one, you nailed it when we started, was share personal stories.
Mhm.
Be share where times when you have not been perhaps as good as you could have been. I think that first and foremost, we as humans love stories, and we hear things through
Mhm.
stories, and we tie things together and kind of relate to people through stories. And I worked for a guy for a while who would say things like, "Boy, I did that same thing, and this is how we should do it now." Well, that was interesting. But I've also worked for leaders who told me a story.
Yeah.
Back when I was working for this particular firm, this is the challenge we went through, and this is what I learned. And so let's talk about that here. And so that vulnerability of saying, "Hey, here's how I got here, and this is how I learned." That window into your past and that window into your thinking process really is a way of showing vulnerability in a way I think that is almost seductive in its power, because people do
Mhm.
get to learn about you and they learn about how you think, and just that storytelling is a real strong tool, I think, for leaders to take advantage of.
Yeah, and it opens up because for some reason we believe that we have these things that aren't quite all that they need to be, but
Yeah.
everybody else doesn't have those same struggles, even though we hear
Hmm.
these stories. But so the more and more we share, and I want to share a funny story. My peer back in the day, Dan, as I
Mm.
refer to him, I remember his whole thing was to show he was always in control and such. And so we were battling back and forth.
Hmm.
I remember one night we were in the office late and we were just kind of talking. And he said, I have to be honest with you, kind of our battle was over. And he said, my strategy has always been intimidation. And
Mm.
I wasn't able to intimidate you.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I just thought that was a vulnerable moment for him to
For
share
sure.
that. But it was also like this reality that he was living this thing that wasn't truly him, so
Right.
that
Right.
he could be that
Sure.
person that he's
Sure.
not. And thank goodness that that day of celebrating that kind of iron, kind of like shield is
Yep.
over.
Oh,
And
sure.
vulnerability really does, to your point, allow people to show up naturally with their own strengths, with their
Yep.
own ideas, emotions, opinions. It's good.
100% agree. We say it all the time on the show here, is that you're always your best when you are yourself. And when you go
Yeah.
into meetings and you are yourself and you are, you bring your true self to work, you are going to be that much better. And yeah, to do so oftentimes requires you to be vulnerable, requires you to bring some emotion to work, bring a story to the table. Those things are part of how it works. But that at the end of the day is going to make you more productive, more confident, and ultimately build a better, stronger team.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So and it's a good long-term strategy.
Absolutely. These are all long-term strategies. There's very few quick fixes, unfortunately, in this cookbook. But
That's right.
this is something that I think it takes practice. You don't need to show up next week and check these three boxes. It's something you need to put in the back of your mind and work on them, just like anything else.
All right, so remind us what they are.
Sure, absolutely. So first and foremost, really you want to encourage open dialogue and an ability to express emotions. People have lives outside of work, and you give them the
Mhm.
opportunity to have emotions in the workplace in a way that it allows you to know that these are good people and humans that we all work with. The second
Mhm.
one is clearly, admitting mistakes and seeking feedback. Be transparent about the way that things have gone down. Don't hide behind the failures, and just seek feedback and guidance when things aren't exactly right. Then third, share with stories, share your truths, tell
Mhm.
people how you got here. Now we all work with that guy that's got a story for everything, and we know that guy
Yeah.
that always says, "Boy, when I worked at General Electric," and then 14 minutes later you forgot what we were doing. Do
Right.
them, yes, but do them judiciously and use them appropriately, and they become a great way of bringing a team together.
Awesome. Those are so good. And something that I would say as you were reading those, I thought, what a great thing to put on a sticky note on
Mm,
your computer to
right.
remind you so that it doesn't just kind of go off in the ether, that it really is something that's top of mind
Right,
in
right.
every
And then, I
conversation.
think that with any one of these topics we discuss,
Mhm.
you're going to learn them through teachings. So
Yeah.
share, we talk about it all the time about, sharing these episodes, but it's not really just about sharing the episodes, share what you've learned, and
Yeah.
you learn through teaching. And so that's a really powerful way of ensuring that you can grow and improve.
Yeah, I love it. And every of these three, they're sticker worthy.
Oh, well, good. They're very good. We don't have stickers, but we may. It could be a side gig for us. Is the quickie stickies?
Wow, we missed the boat on being marketers.
Well, I don't know. We're still we
No.
got some tricks up our sleeve still.
Oh, we
Who knows?
didn't miss our calling. Thank goodness neither of us are. That's a better way of looking at it.
That's a fact.
Quickie stickies. Oh, no. All right, let's just go. Let's move on now. I took it a little far, as I always
Bring it
do.
home.
Bring it home. So this has been Quick Take. I'm not going to admit who I am, but I'm along with my friend James Caps. Thank you, James, for being here, and we appreciate you. Um, we are both on LinkedIn. Feel free to drop us a note, ask us a question. We'd love to hear from you. It's so exciting to us to hear from our, what are they
Quicksters.
called? Quicksters. I don't want to say it
Yes.
wrong again. Yes. And like James said, feel free to share this with somebody, especially somebody you think needs to get a little bit vulnerable. Go ahead and share that. That means it's a win-win. It's a win and a
Right.
win. Show them you're thinking about them. So thanks for joining us. We appreciate you.